Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For far too long, the United States has been planting the seeds of its own decline through a series of strategic miscalculations and misplaced priorities. First came the deindustrialization of America. We made a miscalculation in allowing our domestic industrial capacity to atrophy from neglect. And then came the distraction of America. We made a miscalculation in allowing ourselves to be distracted by quagmires in the Middle East from the singular challenge to American leadership, which is the Chinese Communist Party. Thankfully, under the leadership of President Biden, aided by a bipartisan consensus here in Congress, we are correcting these historical errors to the benefit of U.S. strategic competitiveness. One of the greatest achievements of the Biden administration lies in fundamentally changing the trajectory of the semiconductor arms race, or what Mr. Miller calls the chip wars. Both the CHIP Act and the export controls on China have been game changers. According to a report by the Semiconductor Industry Association and the Boston Consulting Group, by 2032, the United States will account for 30% of advanced semiconductor production, compared to only 2% for China. Mr. Miller, what is the percentage of advanced semiconductors that are projected to come not only from onshoring, but also from nearshoring and friendshoring beyond the reach of the Chinese Communist Party?
Representative, I think we're seeing substantial investments both in the United States, but also in allied countries, in Europe, in Japan, in other partners, that is adding to the resilience of the semiconductor supply chain.
And to what extent does the restrictiveness of America's immigration system undermine the capacity to domestically produce advanced semiconductors?
Representative, I think if we could have more immigrants with high skills in the semiconductor industry, we'd have a more innovative ecosystem.
You know, the term protectionism is often invoked as a pejorative to denounce the policy shift away from so-called free trade. But in my view, there's nothing remotely free about trade with China. The idealized vision of free trade implies a level playing field in which everyone is playing by the rules. China has never been one to play by the rules. China is heavily subsidizing its own industries in order to drive American manufacturers out of business. That is not competition. That is cheating. And President Biden's tariffs are protecting American manufacturers not from competition, but from cheating. Mr. Paul, do you believe, as I do, that the protectionism versus free trade framing ignores the reality of cheating on the part of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes, it's an easy headline, but it doesn't distill all of the issues involved. And I would just point out there's a difference between building a moat or a wall around your country and simply locking your door, which is what I think the tariffs do, which is smart. No one wants to let something bad happen in their house. Yeah.
I feel like we in the China Committee have no greater mission than to prevent a third world war between the United States and China, to prevent China from escalating aggression in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. And a war in the Indo-Pacific, as you know, would largely be a naval war. And according to the Secretary of the Navy, quote, one Chinese shipyard has more capacity than all of our shipyards combined. You know, we have a reputation as the military superpower, the naval superpower of the world. You know, are we truly the naval superpower of the world when we have no independent shipbuilding capacity and when ours pales in comparison to our greatest rival?
I would say it's diminishing, and that is the concern here, is that we currently have a tonnage advantage, but it's unsustainable. We don't have a surge capacity. I mean, the thing that helped identify, and I'm glad the chairman mentioned the arsenal of democracy, was that we were able to do conversions very quickly to scale up battleship building capacity. And the difference now is that we don't have that. I mean, that has disappeared. We do have some shipyards that have been converted to just doing repair work that we could scale back up, but we are dangerously deficient when it comes to scaling up to meet the kind of conflict that you're talking about for any sustained amount of time.
Mr. Miller, just one more question about, obviously much has been said about this China's overcapacity of legacy chip making. Do you think that the risk to the supply chain security of the United States is so serious that it warrants a policy response from the United States, and what should that policy response be?
Yes, I think a policy response is warranted. I think some mix of trade measures and restrictions on use of Chinese semiconductors in critical systems should be examined as potential policy responses.
My time has expired, so thank you.